It's our YouTube exclusive, a good 10 minutes. We're going to talk some NBA here and then get to our NBA mailbag. Again, NBA mailbag rr@gmail.com. So you get some questions in there, and we'll bring in Ceruti, who I think has a magic minute for us today. I don't know if he's prepared, but the thing is, he's kind of always prepared for the magic. I want to talk about Derik Queen. Light slate in the association last night. I was really excited to watch Pelicans hosting the Spurs because this Derik Queen thing is so much fun. Triple double, a 30-point triple double last night. Third rookie ever to have a triple double, a Pelicans franchise. Guess who had two other ones? Chris Paul. Um, so look, the Pels. There's two different ways to talk about this, and I want to focus mostly on the positive here. But of course, there's the negative association with the draft night trade, where the Pelicans' unprotected pick is now the property of the Atlanta Hawks because they wanted Derik Queen so bad. The Pelicans are 3-22, 120 winning percentage, worst in the NBA. That gives them a 14% chance at the number one overall pick, a 52% chance of a top four pick. I hope for Queen's sake, not necessarily the organizations, but I hope for Queen's sake that somehow with the lottery, the way things work, kind of like Utah, that pick ends up outside of the top five. My extremely limited draft prep, limited is the word I should emphasize because I'm not even close to being where I'll be before the draft next year. This could be the kind of draft where it's so deep at the top, like the fifth pick could end up 5 years later being the best player in this entire thing. That's how I think special this group might be. So you could look at it one of two ways. Like, hey, it ended up being a top five and it's not that big of a deal. It's like, yep. Or you gave away an unprotected pick that ended up being number one or number three, and it didn't really matter because there's a chance for maybe multiple guys to make an impact out of this 26 class. All right. So look, that's the draft stuff. As far as Queen is concerned, if we're talking just Derik Queen, he's awesome. I don't know if he's going to be a superstar. I don't know what this all means. I think the most important thing for him is that he's actually with an awful basketball team with a coach that I really like in James Borrego. And even though I love Trey Murphy and I like the Fears pick and I still like Herb Jones and I think Ease was somebody that they hit on, even though, there's a lot of minutes kind of going around depending on who's healthy. The Zion thing, I would punt on. I don't care. This whole idea that this Anthony Davis theory of like, well, if you can just play and look healthy for a month, his trade value will totally change. It would have to be probably a price that you're selling him at that doesn't feel good. But, the time to trade him was after the last healthy run that he had. But the Pelicans don't want to do it because ownership doesn't want to do it because they're afraid that Zion's going to go somewhere else and be a huge star and they're going to feel stupid about it. I would say whatever the next peak of his trade value is, just move on from the entire Zion Williamson thing because it's just not going to work. And I've kind of felt that way for a while. But the great thing is that there's all these available big man minutes for Queen. He's kind of a center. He's kind of a point guard. And because they're bad, he's not going to get yanked out of games for stuff that he's not doing well. The beginning of the year, it was pretty rough, but it should look rough for a guy who's a one and done and is now all of a sudden running around with grown men in the NBA. I think all of us are collectively way too hard on this because it's hard. Like visually, you're seeing somebody go like, "Ooh, that looks terrible," and that's all you're really seeing. And he was the kind of draft prospect where you weren't entirely sure. I'm going to read you my scouting report before the draft. I'm also going to give you a scouting report from somebody from another team that was in the building that watched it, was texting me about Queen's game. So I've got those treats for you coming up here. But it's great. It's not great for Pelicans fans. It's not great for the front office, scouting staff that I think has done an incredible job over the years, but couldn't ever get any credit because they just weren't healthy enough to compete. But it's a great opportunity for him to learn on the job with what is an incredibly, I don't know, I'd like a better word here, but it's just kind of a funky way to play the game. And it's hard to deal with. And you're seeing this night in and night out that he's doing some really special things for a guy his size who does not fit the mold of like a normal basketball player with his size kind of initiating the offense. They ran the offense through him in last night's loss to the Spurs for basically the entire fourth quarter. It's wild. He has these passes, and I would compare it to like quarterbacks. You know how you have like some quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts be a good example here, where it's either go routes on the outside, likely single coverage. Maybe he'll throw it in, hoping he's going to beat the safety coming over the top. Or on some of the shorter routes, it's like the route has to be over. Maybe it's some slant stuff, but for the most part, it feels like, hey, is this quarterback throwing to a spot in anticipation, or is he throwing once the receiver seems to be like officially like establishing himself as open? Where somebody like Stafford, you see the throw come out before the receiver even looks like he's breaking off the route. That's just this timing. That I think is part of the makeup of these special quarterbacks. He has this passing thing that's happening with him, and a lot of it's happening along the baseline. And it's happening so much, I'm actually starting to wonder if defense is going to figure this thing out, which they should be able to figure it out pretty soon if I figured it out at home watching on the couch. But Trey Murphy, who's a terrific off-ball cutter, runs baseline, looks like he's going to come up around to the outside beyond the three-point line. It's kind of like a pin down on his defender. And instead, he like comes and sells this use of a screen on the pin down, and then he doesn't even want to use a screen. He's going to come back baseline, and it's just a lot of stuff because you'll see the defender kind of cheat. He'll cheat a little bit, being like, I got to figure out a way to get around this screen and be able to contest somebody like Trey Murphy, who's this good of a shooter. And once you start doing that kind of stuff, now you're completely out of position if he decides to change course and then cut baseline. And what Queen is doing is clearly he's figured this out with all the wing guys, because it's not just Trey Murphy on some of these passes. He is then throwing to a spot underneath the basket, even if there's a big man that hasn't gone anywhere else, that's supposedly still protecting the rim. They can't believe that anybody's even attempting these passes, and he's attempting it before the player's even in the position. So again, it's like anticipating a route with a receiver. It's so much fun. I would think there's probably going to be some smarter defenders when they start considering like watching some of the tape on this and seeing it time and time again. Like, all right, maybe I'm going to lean and like bait him back into making this pass. I'm going to start leading some turnovers. Well, whatever is happening, they haven't done that yet with him. He can't shoot. He's 11% from three, so everybody plays off of him. But there's a thing that I've had about like, okay, if you're a great driver with the ball, I don't really want to play right up on you because you can put your body into my body and you can kind of control what I'm doing. Like Luka drives to contact. He doesn't drive away from contact. He drives to contact because he wants to control your body as the defender. So you might want to stay off of Luka, but with Luka, you then have to worry about these incredible angles that he shoots a three from. It's something I've been noticing more with Luka too. Like sometimes it's very straightforward, and sometimes it's a hard dribble, and then he almost gets this angle on you on the release where his body doesn't look like it's set up, and it makes it even harder to contest with him. But look, that's a Luka segment. We'll do that later on. Queen, you're playing off of him, but you're playing off of him with a center. They're not really running any pick and roll. The ball stays in his hands. It makes sense if he's 11% from three, although he is 80% on free throws. I think he was 20% on threes in college, but his free throw numbers were good there too. And any guy that runs an NBA team will tell you, if I don't like his shooting numbers from three, usually if somebody's really good from the free throw line, that's something we can work with and figure it out. I don't think he's going to be 11% three-point shooter throughout his entire career. But the problem is, and it's a bit like the Zion conundrum that you had with defenders, is if you played off of Zion to try to cut down the driving angle because you don't want to play right up on him and have his body control you when he makes his first step, first step guy that's really quick, like Ant's another one of those guys. Like, I can't play right on you. I may think I'm cutting you off if I'm physically able to hang with you. Most guys won't be able to, but I'm not going to be able to cut off any kind of driving angle because I'm not far enough back, right? It's kind of like a hockey goalie deciding in a breakaway, like how far out do I want to go? How deep do I want to play? Can I cut off an angle being closer? Do I have to play back further to try to cut off more angles? Like, I think there's a lot of times where it's not just, hey, great driver, stay on him. Great shooter, stay on him. Terrible shooter, always play off of him. You may not want to close out against help on a bad shooter, but now I'm starting to ramble a little bit too much. So I will get back to Queen. Queen, they play off him because that makes sense because of the shooting. But the problem is, like Zion, it's different because he's not even close to being the athlete Zion is. You're giving somebody with a handle who's this size all this momentum to get downhill. And once Queen has his body on you, you're done. And the thing I struggled with him at Maryland was it was a bit like the Cat drives, where Cat will drive with the basketball. And I'm like, oh, my God. And then it kind of works. It works way more often than it doesn't, whether it's making the layup that you can't believe is going in or getting to the free throw line. And right now, Queen, if he doesn't make the layup, he's getting to the free throw line. His free throw rate is at 429, right? What that number means, because I got to give you more. Donovan Mitchell for his career is at 258, so it's your free throw rate. Like, which percentage of your possessions are you ending up with free throws? Tatum's at 304 for his career. Booker's at 330. Harden's number is god-awful, which we knew would be 509. But Queen's at 429. But it kind of matches up. Like college, he had a high free throw rate. The other number that's incredible right now is that his assist to turnover, even with his dynamic passing that he has, like he sees the game in a special way. With his passing ability, he he's actually his assist turnover stuff is better in the pros than it was in college. I'm going to go back to my scouting report on him that I do for myself here. Look, a big guy like that, the were really good. His assist to turnover, he had assists on 11.6% of his possessions, turnovers on 15% of his possessions. So that was alarming. The free throw rate was insane in college. It was 5.46. So usually when you see that kind of thing, it's like this guy might live at the free throw line. He didn't necessarily take a ton of shots. He wants to kind of defer to some of his guys, and that played out on his field goal attempts per 100 possessions. So he was Max Prep's freshman of the year, goes to Montverde his sophomore year. And by the way, one of the Montverde coaches reached out to me before the draft. He's like, I'm telling you right now, Derik Queen's the smartest basketball player I've ever seen. He's like, and if you're doubting him, you're going to be wrong. Credit to that guy. Now, look, we're a quarter way into his rookie season. So let's see here. What else? What do I say? Okay, I went blink tested isn't great. Looks slow. How's this body going to age? Casual passes, turnovers on passes in traffic. Is he a center? Does he want to be a point guard? But then he'll do something really impressive. His drives are really good, constantly getting fouled. His handle and spins, tough to defend. Reminds me a bit of Cat, where it might not look great, but it works. Some great instincts. The stuff that stands out is that he's your center. He can have the ball at the top of the three-point line like he's your point guard and dribble drive from out there and finish once he gets going. It's tough to stop because he's so big. The three-point shot is ... out in front of him, can tell when it's going to be off because of the way he flicks it. It's tough for him to work with. But then I said, man, the post, left block, and turn and finish the left hand. I guess this one game that I was really digging into was against Grand Canyon. I was like, but this would have worked on anyone. He'll make a pass you wouldn't expect. He could definitely pass. His best attack might be dribble off the free throw line pull up. I don't think that's necessarily played out so far, but I don't think you can leave him at 15 feet. He's even taken some of these elbow things that look pretty good out of his hands. The baseline drive spin. And then I was like, then he looks like he sucks. He's loose with the ball, drives that have no chance. Not sure how many times he's slipping the screen or if he's just being lazy about it. These fucking turnovers, man, way too many bad ones. And why do people go for his up fakes? I looked at the isolation stuff on Synergy. 12% of his possessions were isolation, a little bit lower than maybe you would think. The overall points per shot stuff, it wasn't great. It was below average. I had a really hard time with him because the good was really good, and he's a very unique player, and the bad was just visually tough to watch. So you're like, how do I take this guy over some of these other guys in the class? Well, I talked to an NBA scout that was in the building last night. I said, give me the full breakdown. Obviously anonymous. Here we go. Quote, coming out of Maryland, I think there wasn't a ton of questions about the pure talent. At times it looked like he didn't always play hard, especially defensively, but he would roll out of bed and get 20 and 10. Bigger question was just from an archetype standpoint, how many pathways do you have to build a team with a back to the basket, high usage center who doesn't really rebound or protect the rim? Early in his career, he's been pretty impressive. He's looked good for a rookie, which is an important distinction. Rookies rarely impact winning, and he's no outlier. He's not helping a team win games right now. New Orleans certainly feeding him opportunities and running the offense through him, especially after Borrego took over. He does some dazzling stuff as a passer, though there are some very big decision-making concerns still as the turnover numbers have been quite bad and the scoring efficiency is down. If he's going to be a good shooter, he hasn't shown it yet. We'll have to tighten it all up if he's going to warrant a top 10 percentile usage the way he is now for a team that doesn't want to be in the lottery. Offense has been as advertised. Defense has been bad as advertised as well. Really poor rebounder. New Orleans might be uniquely qualified to build a team around him, ironically enough, because they have so many good perimeter defenders at the forward spot that can compensate for him. But we usually see defenses built from the back line first, which won't be the case with him as your starting center. Also, long-term, there are questions about a 1-5 defensive pick and roll that has Fears and Queen in it, which I think is like this guy's thinking long term. I'm probably thinking way too much about fourth quarter Pelicans Spurs, but all these are incredibly valid points. You're going to have to find a way to hide someone, and that's two players, obviously. All that to say, he's had some impressive flashes, but he's got a long ways to go. Şengün at the same age, in a very similar boat, so there's a recent precedent. Good rookie season so far. So I think those are all warranted concerns and kind of fit some of the stuff that, I think anybody that watched him at Maryland would have to say. But as far as like a quarter of the way into this season, you should feel really good about what his potential is. Um, because again, this kind of brings it back to the start of the whole thing. It's like, yeah, but they gave up that pick for him. I want to talk about him, and then I can talk. Like people say, hey, when can we move? We're never going to move on from this. All right, we're never going to move on from. But if we could just talk about Queen, I think that's at least something that should be celebrated a little early on. Little quick thing here with this Giannis trade market stuff. Not that I have a bunch of information to share with you because I don't have anything new other than everything that you've read too. So there's that. But I hate this like speculative who would be in the trade or who wouldn't. Because look, no team is going to say, like, I'll use the Spurs as an example. Well, we would do something, but we won't do Castle, we won't do Harper, and we won't do, it's just like, right. So it's Giannis and not going to do any of the good guys. Having watched the Spurs a little bit more, sans Wemby, Castle is so relentless. I wouldn't want to give him up. And Harper, I don't care what any of the numbers are. Antonio Daniels on the call for the Pelicans, who's a pretty reserved guy with his praise. He was freaking out about Harper. I think watching Harper is about those moments where you're like, this guy can do that. Some of these pivots, some of this finishing, some of the drives, the smoothness to his game where he's kind of lost in the shuffle of like, you're not going to get full point guard possessions, but we may just kind of throw you out there. As much as I can't stand the speculative, like all these teams being like, yeah, we'd be interested in Giannis, but you can't have like any of our 7 good players. I kind of understand it with San Antonio. And really, the Giannis thing's going to come down to one simple thing. Is there an actual competitive market for him, or is he and his representatives going to tell everyone, hey, this is the only place that we want to go? And if the Bucks are only going to deal with one team that feels good about signing him to an extension as opposed to all the other teams that would be scared to death of giving up real assets for a guy that could bolt, because that's what they're going to, they may not believe it. And sometimes teams can call the players bluff. But with Giannis, the next deal that's coming and how important it is to him, it's going to be like the pricing for Giannis. I have no idea what it's going to be until we have a better understanding of how much control he wants over this process. And if he decides he wants full control and he limits the number of suitors, then it may be that one of these teams is going to go, hey, guess what? We don't have to give you any of our good players. If it's a real open market and competitive offers, then it completely changes the price. Our mailbag is NBA mailbag, rr@gmail.com. I know Ceruti has some emails that he wants to read, but I think the floor is yours.
Well,
18 minutes into a 10 good minutes here where I don't know, do you want to do something on the Franz watch or what do you want to
I
do?
do, but I actually have a follow up to your Wemby thing that I was just thinking about. I'm sorry, your Giannis thing. If I'm the Spurs, I don't know why I would do that deal. Like you are immediately in win now mode with Giannis. I don't know that you really want or have to be there, especially with the Thunder looking like they're gonna win. I mean, anything could happen, but like I would just let it play out. You've got some like really good young players that everyone likes. You just talked about Castle and Harper. I don't know why you have to speed the timeline up. I don't get it. So I actually don't think if I'm the Spurs, if I'm a Spurs fan, I wouldn't want to make that deal. Giannis is 31. Like you
What if
immediately have
this
to
what if
change
it's
everything.
Fox? What if it's Fox and draft picks?
Well, there's I just, the why is Milwaukee doing that? I guess if he
Well,
just
maybe they're
says
doing it if he's saying I'm only going to the Knicks, I'm only going to San Antonio, and then the Bucks go, we want to do the Cat OG thing without Brunson. Like,
I guess that's a case where I would do it, but I don't think we're there yet. I'm if I'm San Antonio, I'm very happy with what I have and how I'm building going forward, and I'm also happy to wait out the OKC thing, see what happens. They're a wagon right now. Like why would you're in a good spot where like you're if you win, that's great. You've got this player everybody loves to watch. You've got like a few years to kind of figure it out, and also like you know does it have to be Giannis? Could it be somebody else too? I think he could wait.
timeline, roster timeline. Is Giannis on the same roster timeline? I guess I'm rooting for it from just a fascination standpoint.
I would agree.
There's also something to be said here, but and I said this before the draft, and I'm surprised. Like I don't know. I guess I'm surprised that more people didn't agree with me, or maybe it wasn't fun, or maybe people didn't care that I said it. But I think Wemby's too big for how he plays, and my my thing before the draft was like, I think he's insane. He's a unicorn. He's everything. And by the way, his personality and what he's been as a player is even beyond the absurd expectations that we've had for him, right?
Hmm.
What he was doing at the beginning of this year offensively, I'm like, oh my God, like this is already here because I thought there was still some stuff with him offensively, just where he liked to play on the court. I mean, we're talking about somebody potentially being the best player in the NBA, so we're going to be a little harsher even this young into his career. But is there anything to be like, hey, this guy might just be one of these dudes who was hurt all the time? Because I think the perimeter guys at this size, it's almost like you've created a player too big. And I had the concerns before the draft. I still have them now. It's played out this way. Do you think the timeline is sped up a bit because you worry about the long term health of Wembanyama and what his career is going to look like?
I'm not there yet. I know what you're saying.
That's fine. Yeah.
I,
I'm not
I,
even
I'm
sure
ha
I'm there yet.
Yeah,
I think your position is a really smart one. Like, why do we have to necessarily do this? It's a lot. It probably has a lot to do with pricing.
yeah. If it's the price that you said, all right, yeah, like cool. But like if with Castle and Harper, like man,
So that's
that's
it. So if Horst calls and says, "Hey, we need two first, we'll figure out the salary stuff." I mean, I'm the only guy that still likes Keldon Johnson, I think, in the world. Um, I like him a little bit. Let me just say that he's just a big dog, man. So if Horst calls San Antonio and says it's got to be Castle or Harper and the salary stuff and like a couple picks, you're saying no right
I
now.
think so. Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. I would just want, and again, I got criticized for, I got asked a million times about, oh, should the Magic be interested in so and so, yada yada. I'm like, could we just let Franz and Paulo and the core kind of play it out for a little bit and see, and like, maybe they've missed an opportunity on somebody, but like they get Desmond Bain and they look awesome, and this is a perfect transition into my into my Orlando Magic minute where we had a hell of a scare. Over the weekend that I didn't even comment on because I didn't really know what the heck to believe. But it was like this really strange injury where he fell and did the opposite of hyperextending his knee. He basically like folded it too much. And, it was doom and gloom for a good 24 hours. And it seems like he's going to be fine. They really only announced it as like an ankle injury. And it's going to be 2 to 4 weeks and yada, yada. So that's great. Love it. Love it for Franz too, because he's an all-star right now and he's still going to be in line to potentially do that. I don't know what the timeline is for him playing in that Germany game, which I think is in like a little over a month. So we'll see. But very interesting period for the Magic because now Paulo comes back from the injury, and there's a lot of questions about Paulo. And I'm not really one of those guys that has these questions. I don't think you are either. But I'm excited to see because this team was kind of humming with Franz as the guy, and I think Franz can be that guy. But I think so many people are quick to be like, "Well, Paulo has to fit into this team now. Like he's inefficient, he stinks." I he that Miami game when he played, it looked like it was like a little bit more of like, hey, I get kind of the team concept. I understand I got to move the ball more a little bit. I think it's gonna be a fun month to watch the Magic for a lot of reasons, but one because I think it's gonna be a big Paulo month, and I think you agree with that too because I know you're a big Paulo guy, but I think this is a good month where he can kind of shut up some of the haters, which would be nice.
My Palo stuff is well established, as we all know. So I don't need to add to that. I even noticed, I don't know if I want to get ahead of myself here, but I feel like I've noticed less of a hitch in Franz's 3-point shooting.
36% from three. Um, he's I think he's taking more shots that he should take, and I think he was pressing a little bit more in the past. And listen, like Bane, it kind of changes the geometry of the court. Like he's open more too. The
The
Bane deal
hitch,
to
though,
me.
I'm talking about that hitch that at the
Oh
beginning of
yeah.
this year again, I went, are you kidding me? Like what? And he was 44% the first few games. You go into November, he was 30%. He's like 46% here in December. But there's a little bit more smoothness in the
Hmm.
delivery
Which was
where,
the first and second year when he was a good shooter,
yeah,
or even going back to
yeah.
Michigan, or when he plays with Germany, he's fine. He's like mostly fine. It's just like,
You
yeah, he
think it's
gets
a
to these
tariff
national
thing?
TV games and definitely a tariff thing. Yeah, I blame anything on tariffs. It's fine.
Where
Um,
were you on the Bane throwing the ball off of OG
I
Anunoby?
thought it was hilarious, but again, if I was a Knicks fan, I'd be like, fuck that guy. It was a little weird. It was aggressive, but they like
It
three plays
was a
before
lot
that.
weird. It was a lot
Well, three
weird.
plays before that, they were kind of going at it, and I don't think enough, like nobody gets that kind of context. So there was a little bit, and I actually respect to OG because like he handled that about as well as
I
anybody could
couldn't
handle it.
believe, yeah, I
Yeah.
couldn't believe how well he handled it at all. And you're right. Like anytime I see any kind of altercation happen in NBA court, you immediately have to rewind like three or four possessions,
Hmm.
and you will find the root cause of what happened. And Bane, though, is always looking for it all the time.
Good.
And
I want
I
that
know
guy.
you love it. That was ridiculous. And then his defense of it was even funnier, where he's like, I was falling out of bounds. And Tony Brothers like watches the replay with him and then goes to him. He's like, you
He's got
weren't
2 feet
falling
in
out of
bounds.
bounds. Yeah.
He has
You were
2 feet on the floor and
you
throws it.
you could have been more stabilized. It was like you caught a ball in dodgeball, and
Yep.
then we're like, I'm gonna try to get you.
The
And you're
best
right.
part too, the best part too is when OG got up and gave him a shove, and Bane just points at him and goes technical, tee him up, tee him up, tee him up, and it's like, so not only do you
That's
chuck the
not the
ball at this
best. That
dude,
wasn't the best part.
I'm okay. I'm just saying that to me was I thought that was funny, and again from a Magic fan perspective. If I was a Knicks fan, I'd be like fuck that guy. So you know,
Oh, geez, it's like, are we good, bro? Are we good? But I don't know,
apparently
man.
not.
With Bane's arms, apparently nobody wants to mix it up with him. Even though OG's got a lot of size on him, and you would imagine length as well. All right. So again, NBA mailbag,
Yep.
rr@gmail.com. What do we got?
All right. I got two for you here. Pistons guy. This is Todd. He wants to know, does it make sense for the Pistons to try to get a Murphy from the Pels more than a Markkanen from the Jazz? How about an Ivy and Holland swap for Herb Jones and Murphy? Pistons get their wings, Pelicans get their youth and potential. I did put this in the trade machine. You'd have to add another contract because it doesn't make any sense. So you'd have to add like Tobias Harris's money in there.
Trade machine stuff isn't fun anymore because you post any kind of trade, you're like, I wonder if I'd do this. And then the guys that really know it are like,
Or like,
oh,
no.
you used to be able to just say third team all the time, and everybody just sort of understood we were just having fun with it. So wait a minute, what are you getting Herb and Trey for Ivy and who?
And Holland, it looks
Yeah,
like.
you're gonna do, do a little
I was
bit
gonna
better
say,
than
why
that.
would the Pelicans give up? Could you get one of those guys? I don't know why. I don't know why if you're the Pelicans, unless you're getting something like pretty significant, maybe you think Ivy is that, you're giving up um Trey Murphy.
I like Ivy. Year with Monty, waste a year. Then he's hurt, plays 30 games. He hasn't looked great. Um, you got to see what it look. I make fun of the Anthony Davis, let's see him for a month thing. This is totally different with Jaden Ivey. Like, let's see him for a couple months before we know what his actual value is. But that doesn't make any sense at all. I think Trey Murphy's the perfect player for the Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay. Because he can
Well, he's
handle
fair
the
for a lot of
ball.
teams to be fair. Like he's
Well,
just
Murphy's incredible because he's
yeah.
not just a guy. Like, this was the thing at Virginia when you really dug into him. You go, oh, this isn't some huge guy who's going to space the floor. Like, he's going to space the floor and he can do all these other things. They threw a lob to him last night where he dunked it over De'Aaron Fox. Like, he made De'Aaron Fox look like he wasn't an athlete. By the way, De'Aaron Fox without having Wemby in there is like having these De'Aaron Fox moments again, where he's just kind of like, hey, I'm probably still one of the best players when it comes to isolation and doing stuff. I don't know what the points per shot is necessarily this year for him. But yeah, you're gonna have to do way better than that. Because even if I like Ron Holland's tenacity,
And the picks are not going to be great. So like
I love that you got Herb Jones in the deal too.
yeah, why just to throw him in. There you go. Both they're starting 2 and 3. Perfect.
I don't know if I do Herb Jones for Ivy.
You're that low on Ivy. Yeah, that's
Well,
fair.
I'm
I
not that. It's just who he is right now.
well, you're banking on like, hey, he probably has more upside. I think maybe we can get him a new setting, figure it
I
out. Less
might I
pressure.
might be the only one that would be like, hey, we have to think about this right now with Ivy. I think most people would just go like, I don't know what
Pass.
Ivy is necessarily. I'd imagine, look, you go that high in the lottery,
God,
I
people
think
loved
people would
him coming out of
understand.
the draft too.
Yeah.
I don't know. He was fun obviously at Purdue, but injuries,
Holland and Ivy's not enough for Murphy. All right. And the other problem is now Detroit, because you're good, your first round picks.
I was late 20s down, bud. Not great.
But you're right. Like, I could sit there and go, Trey with the Pistons is absolutely perfect. I think Trey Murphy fits with everyone.
That's kind of how I felt about with Bane. And it's like, hey, Bane, a Mikal Bridges type, although it hasn't worked out. Like those guys are just like perfect plug and play where, they just help everyone around them and they're better. And that's why, I think Trey Murphy would go for a lot more than some people think. Maybe people know that already, but
Look, if Bane's going to get four first rounders, then that's the starting point with Murphy.
totally, totally. All right, one more here because I know we've gone along. This is fun and it's also not really basketball related, but we're going to do some non-basketball things. This is from Matt, and this is maybe one of the funnier emails we've ever gotten. All right, he goes, I recognize there are some serious holes in this comparison, but it popped up in my head while listening to Monday's show. This is like a week old or so, by the way. Key points. And I should say the subject of the email is Ryen the Lane Kiffin of the podcasting game?
Okay.
And it's like, all right, I'll hear you out.
Not a great start.
Bullet point 1. Left the former superpower, USC, ESPN, on bad terms. Did you leave on bad terms? I don't know. Everyone knows ESPN is in the past as far as personalities go. He's saying that about USC too. Wow, media rights is a different story. All right, so there's bullet point one. Bullet point two, he joins a new age dynasty, Ringer, Bama, 2013, as the right hand man to the mastermind behind the operation. I'm skipping FAU because I'm not really sure if I could fill one in for that.
Well, some people
Next,
would call my screenwriting FAU, so that would be.
that's fair. That is fair. All right, develops his own show, Old Miss, into a cemented player that can compete with anyone. Attracts offers from the biggest names in the game. Most of the general public left in the dark during the negotiation phases. Takes his entire offensive staff, Ceruti and Kyle, with him. Left a stable gig for one with a higher ceiling and more boisterous fans. Not allowed to finish the season with his team. Rest in peace, Wargon. Hops on a plane and immediately goes to work. First show with Herbie, and I'm sure he's already started recruiting. He said, "I understand that this is likely something that won't be read on the pod." Well, here we go, buddy. But given the recency of the Ringer departure, but would love to hear your thoughts on this, although likely negative. Looking forward to a Taylor Rooks sit down in about 4 months or so to air it all out.
I tell Taylor Rooks I'm going to win 5 Emmys.
You said no. You
you start looking at Taylor
Rooks.
Rooks and you're like, I got all sorts of stuff in the books.
Are you aware or unaware of what your Barstool contract is? Because Lane Kiffin famously was like, I don't even know what the numbers are, dude. Just wanted to be here.
I'm pretty aware of what my contract is. I like to know about those things. All right, so if we go line by line, the exit with ESPN was. We've already talked about this enough. I've kind of told myself it's like enough. It was. It wasn't like the happiest of days, but they still wanted me to stay, and I still want to try to find a way to figure it out. And in 2019, I still was like pretty close to going, maybe I'll just keep doing this for a little while, but I just didn't think the ceiling was going to be there. All right, so yeah, some similarities, but it's not like ESPN wouldn't leave me on the tarmac, so there's nothing even close to that. But let's have some fun with this. What's the next bullet point?
Joins the New Age Dynasty, Ringer, Bama, 2013, as the right hand man to the mastermind behind the operation.
That's really accurate. Yeah, that one is really accurate. But me leaving Bama, Ringer in this case, I think Lane, they were pretty tired of Lane. And I never get the sense that anybody was tired of me.
Fair. Next, skipping. He says he skips FAU, although you think that that's your screenwriting
I
career,
don't.
which is
I
funny.
think some people.
Yeah,
I think if people found out how much I'd made in screenwriting of nothing that's ever been made, maybe they'd be like, "Oh, maybe there's some value in what he's doing." But yeah, whatever. I haven't done anything that's been made. So keep trying.
and it's still ongoing, whereas the FAU is closed. Develops his own show, Ole Miss, into a cemented player that can compete with anyone.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Maybe not one of the blue bloods, but it's like, hey, did you see his numbers? So that's good. This is the hard part, though. Taking the staff. I mean, this is where it would get.
You didn't tell Kyle and I that we either had to get on the plane or we weren't coming.
No. I think
It was a very understandable discussion. Yeah.
I think what I did for you guys is, and I don't want to go Stephen A here. If it weren't for me, I think I presented you guys with great opportunities, and I think that's why you came. And we all like really doing the show together, so it was actually pretty simple. So I don't think that was. I don't think that's comparable there. I think the one that's really tough is like, oh, everybody was kept in the dark about the whole thing. Not being able to finish with the team is really funny. I would say I stayed longer towards the end
Than Lane.
halfway through the football season, which
Well, Lane wanted to stay. Listen, hey, he wanted to stay. So
yeah, I just kept working.
stay.
There wasn't really anything to talk about. I mean, sure, yeah, could there be some big hour-long discussion about all that stuff? I don't know. I don't know that day's ever going to come. So yeah, there's some similarities there. I think there are, but I don't have anybody chasing me out of Knoxville. I wasn't left. And even though you could say I'm jumping around a little bit, I mean, this is the third place I've worked since 2006. So I usually stay where I'm working for quite a long time, whether it was ESPN for 15 years or like 7 years with the Ringer, and there's a little bit of an overlap there of a year or two. But I feel pretty good about my track record in comparison to Lane's. Is that it seems like everybody, well, Tennessee probably wanted Lane to stay. USC didn't, the Raiders didn't, Ole Miss did, Bama didn't, and hopefully LSU does for a long time. So we'll put a positive on that one. But I think his stock chart has a few more peaks and valleys in it than mine does.
I was gonna say he's more of like he was like a prodigy that didn't really work out, had to refine himself. I feel like you were constantly just trying to prove yourself, prove yourself, prove yourself, prove yourself. And it's just
Yeah, no
in
one's
those arcs is different.
Yeah. I would have loved if my career at like 30 years old, everybody was like, this guy's the biggest deal ever. Let's give him everything right now. And if it's too soon, who cares? That would have been if I would have
Russillo,
much
30
rather
under
done
30.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could have put the Forbes 30 under 30 in my bio.
Yeah.
Shit, I was hoping to do 40 under 40, changing the landscape. I never was changing the landscape, unfortunately.
Maybe you'll get 60 under 60. You never
I
know.
know because I'm not even eligible for 50 under 50 anymore. It sucks. All right, that'll do it
Good
for a
email.
good. Wait,
Yeah.
is that it? I
That's
feel
it.
like
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, a
That's
good
yeah, we're long.
36, good 37 minutes today. Sometimes we go a little bit longer with these. Please subscribe to the Ryen Russillo Show podcast and also our YouTube page, which we will keep exclusive content on. That's not always on the podcast. So thanks as always for checking it out. Thanks for hanging out today, and we'll be back next week.